Right. Hello. I think I'm live now on Facebook. I had to find me for a little while, and as usual, the visual is rather lagged. So I'm not quite sure whether you've got one of those sort of seeing my face move and then hearing me at some completely different time. So I'm here on my own today. I have no guest. You're just going to have to put up with me. Um, the thing I'd like to talk about, apart from my book, let me just get a quick plug in for my book, which comes out on Monday. In the book, there is a whole chapter on the dreaded drama triangle. So let me tell you something about it. The reason that it's in the book, the reason that it's so important is because it's something that affects us all, and it particularly affects children. Olive was talking about children who experience difficulties with learning. We've talked about tapping, we've talked about art therapy, we've talked about sharing our emotions. And the drama triangle, just sort of in a sense, brings everything together because as you'll see in the diagram that I posted in the group, there are three positions. The drama triangle was created by Stephen Karpman back in the 70s, I think. He was an expert in transactional analysis, amongst other things. And the three positions that he came up with were victim, persecutor, and rescuer. The drama triangle's three positions are, in a sense, like a classic story structure. So if you think of like the first stories that your children read or that you read to them perhaps, they all involve some sort of victim. And I don't mean that they are a victim factually, I mean that they are in the role of a victim in so much as they are what we call poor me. So if you think of characters like Cinderella, Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, all of these, sadly, women are in a position where they can't do what they want to do. And frequently, as you can imagine, children find themselves in that position. So that's the victim position, powerless, poor me, I can't. It's an I can't position. The thing or person that they blame for not being able to do that thing is the persecutor. So the persecutor could be their particular problem with learning. It could be their issues, their family situation. It could be all sorts of situations they might find themselves in. I'm quite sure that the pandemic will be blamed for a lot of things and will be put in the position of persecutor. Could be somebody who's being mean to them at school. It could be you telling them to go to bed. So the persecutor is the thing or person that the victim blames for blocking them for doing what they want to do. Then the rescuer is the person or thing that helps them out, that sorts it out. So if you think of, say, Cinderella, Cinderella is poor me because she can't go to the ball, she's doing all the cleaning, she doesn't feel loved. And the ugly sisters, the stepsisters, are the persecutors. That's who she blames for not being able to do what she wants to do. And the rescuer is the fairy godmother, who comes along and says, you will go to the ball, and here you go, here's a gorgeous coach and pumpkins and all sorts of stuff. We've just had pumpkins, haven't we? So the rescuer fixes. Now, the problem with all of this, and I will go into each of the positions in a bit more detail, is that it is actually quite toxic because each person holds each other, or each role holds each other in place. You're held in it. So, for instance, the rescuer fixing the problem is, in a sense, telling the victim, you need me to sort yourself out. You need me to fix this. So they stay in victim. They don't move out of it because somebody is coming along to sort it out for them, really. And the persecutor is in a position where their needs aren't met because nobody's listening to them. So they've almost certainly gone from victim to persecutor, but more of that in a moment. I've got a few little notes here because there's a lot of things I want to tell you about it. So let's just first of all focus on the victim. The reason I'm focusing on the victim is because that's sometimes where it starts. You know, it's where, I don't know, you've been working hard all day, you've been doing stuff for the kids, doing stuff for your partner, doing stuff for the boss, the colleagues, doing stuff, giving out all the time. And it's like, nobody's thinking of me. You know, what about me? You know, nobody appreciates me. Nobody's seeing all the things I'm doing. You know, all I want to do is just, you know, have a quiet cup of tea and talk to a friend. But no, I've got to do stuff all the time. So we can put ourselves into victim. Children put themselves into victim. Why have I got this boring homework to do? I can't do it, and so on and so forth. We put ourselves, this is a choice. And that's quite important to point out. You know, just because, say, your parents have split up, just because, say, you can't play football today, you know, you are not automatically a victim. Even children who've got, say, cerebral palsy, children who are disabled, who have all sorts of, you know, unspeakable situations that's occurring to them that they might be in, they don't automatically become a victim. Some will simply make the best of the situation. Some will, I mean, look at the Paralympians, look at the things that children do. Even, you know, you only have to look at, say, children in need. And I guess that's I think that's an honor at the moment to see actually what children are capable of despite the situation. So it's not an automatic thing that because we have all these disadvantages that we are actually in the role of victim. But the victim role, as I say, is the poor me. As soon as you start thinking, poor me, you have chosen to move into victim. And all you can see are problems. And the problems are where the persecutor is. So the problem is the person telling you to go to bed, the person telling you you've got to do your homework, the teacher telling you off. It's whatever you blame for putting you in that situation. So as I said, it can be a thing, it can be a situation, a person, an issue. It doesn't really matter what it is. It's what the victim thinks it is the persecutor. So you may be seen as a persecutor, even though you're absolutely not wanting to, because you know you want them to go to bed because they're going to be tired, but they're still seeing you as persecutor in that situation. The rescuer is the person, as I said, who fixes it. Now, when we think about these roles, there's a lot of movement around. So what can happen is you feel really bad because you've been put upon, you feel you can't cope, maybe you feel overwhelmed. A lot of us are feeling really overwhelmed at the moment. And we might blame the pandemic, blame our work situation, and that goes into persecutor position. And then what is the rescuer in that situation? You may say, well, who's the rescuer there? But it could be your partner just bringing you a cup of tea. It could be a friend making time to talk to you. It could be a glass of wine. It could be a cake. It could be food. It can be, sometimes it might be drugs, antidepressants, those sort of things. It could be drugs that are holding you in a sort of fixing type of role. It could be therapy. It could be all sorts of things, can be the thing that you turn to for rescuing. But the problem is that we are held there. The victim needs to move away. This is the solution that we need to find, and this is what we call the empowerment dynamic, which is TED. So we want to move from the dreaded drama triangle to TED, which is the empowerment dynamic. And this is where we focus on our needs, we focus on what we want, and we sort things out for ourselves. And I'm sure you're going to tell me, well, children can't sort things out for themselves, but I'm going to show you how you can turn the rescuer role into more of a coaching role. And if you think perhaps of You know that expression that we say, if you feed a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for life. That's really what we're looking at here. You know, it's so tempting as a parent, and I know I've got 4 kids, I mean, they're grown up now, but it was very tempting to just fix it, you know, go speak to the teacher, give them a ring, message them, you know, go sort this out, take them in their PE kit if they'd forgotten it, you know, make them their packed lunch if they'd forgotten to make it, you know, help them with their homework. You know, as loving parents, that's what we feel we should do, isn't it? We want to help them. You know, we perhaps can help them. Well, yes, we definitely can help them. But there does come to an age, and I see a lot of my clients are aged sort of like 10 to 14. I'm seeing a lot of teenagers actually at the moment that I don't see so much of, but a lot of my clients are around that year 5, year 6, year 7, year 8 sort of stage. And they really are at the stage where they need to be able to step away from the drama triangle, and the rescuer needs to step back. Because what we're doing as rescuers when they get to that age is we're saying, you need us. You need us to do this for you because, implied, you can't do this for yourself. Now, a lot of parents say that their children have low self esteem. Look at what happens then in that situation where they're saying, I can't do this. And we're saying, oh, I'll help you. And they probably say, can you help me, mummy? Can you help me, daddy? You know, I can't do it. Can you help? And of course we can. And when we do, we really confirm that belief that they have, that they can't do it. But there are lots of things that you can do instead. You can turn much more to being a coach. And by that, I mean by just reflecting back to them. And we can use clean languages, is what we call clean languages, where it's free of assumption. We're just reflecting back. So we might say something like, you can't do it? You know, tell me about that. You know, what's going on? Can't do it. You know, and then, well, I don't understand this. Okay, so what can you do about that? You know, there's plenty of ways that they can address this themselves. They can go online, they can Google, they can ask a friend, they can ask their teacher, they can read the question again, they can take it slowly, they could take a break, they could have a run around. I mean, running around outside, we can still do that. Running around outside gets that oxygen moving to the brain. Drinking water really helps. Maybe they're hungry, maybe their blood sugar level's low, maybe they need a snack, maybe you need some sort of something to eat. We can certainly find out what they need in order to overcome the block, but we don't need to fix it. And when we do that, what we do is we empower them. And okay, so yes, they might make a mistake. You know, maybe they submit their homework and it's not quite right, and but the chances are it will be right. We need to believe and trust in them. And I think that's sometimes where the rescuer, sometimes it can be, I mean, I don't want to say toxic because that's just a bit harsh, but when the rescuer believes that the child can't do it, then what they're doing is, yes, they're confirming the child can't do it. They're saying, yes, you're right, you can't do it, and I can do it. So it makes the rescuer believe, well, they needed me to do it. What would they do without me? I can do these things. And although I'm sure we're all quite reluctant to admit it, but actually it's quite nice to feel needed. Oh, mummy, can you help? Oh, yeah, of course I can. But just think what you're doing. If your child's like, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, sort of, ish, obviously, that doesn't apply. But having said that, I ran a Montessori nursery school for 7 years. And that's, of course, preschool. It's certainly it was up to 5 then. And the idea of Montessori is actually it's child-led. So children take a tray off the shelf, they do the exercise, and they put it back for the other person, because it's about taking responsibility for the space you're in, keeping it clean and tidy. It's about considering the needs of others, and about taking responsibility for yourself, learning how to do the laces, learning how to put your coat on. And parents have chosen to send their child to a Montessori school. one would hope, because of the philosophy of encouraging sort of self-learning, self-esteem, taking responsibility, but to some extent, as much as one can at sort of 3 or 4 years old, for yourself. And so children knew how to sort of put their hands into their coat, flick it over their head, put it on. They knew how to do up their shoes, their Velcro shoes or whatever. And yet what would happen? Parents would come pick up their child from school, and they would take the coat, put it on the child. And what they're saying there is, yes, I know you do that at school, but I'm going to do it for you because it's quicker. So there's in that moment, where the child is feeling really proud of themselves. Look, mummy, I can put my coat on for myself. The mum is saying, no, you can't, you need me. And I know, and I'm sure you're sitting there thinking, but it's done out of love. Of course it's done out of love. And at that sort of age, it's sort of, they are still very young. We are doing stuff for them. But actually, they can do much more for themselves than we think. And when they show us what they can do, that's great. And we do need to encourage them to take responsibility. So if they spill some water, even if they just hold the mop with you to sort of clear it up, it's encouraging them to take responsibility. And this builds self-esteem. But I'm talking more here about the focus I really want to put on this is those of you who've got children in year 5, 6, 7, 8 and older, who should be encouraged, perhaps, or could be encouraged to do far more thinking for themselves. So the role of coach here is for you to say, what do you think you could do? What are your options? What are your choices? What can you do instead? Or if they're making assumptions about, say, somebody's intentions at school, or somebody was mean to me, or somebody was doing this, or somebody said I was this, what do you think? Find out, just check inside them, for them to check in with themselves, to choose the attitude that we want to take. Do we want to stay in victim? Because what happens is when we stay in victim, we can only be in it for a little while before we start going mad and move to persecutor. So if I give you a sort of scenario that I think probably quite often happens in homes, is maybe older child is doing the homework, or they're maybe on the computer, they're doing video games, they're doing whatever. Younger child wants to play with them. Their intention is good. There's a positive intention, let's say. There may not be, but let's assume. So the younger child comes in, but takes something of the older child because the older child doesn't want to play. The older child's quite happy playing with their friends on the Xbox or whatever. So the younger child comes in, takes something. What they're actually saying is, play with me, play with me. But they are told, no, go away, go away. So they then take something of the older child. Maybe they take their phone, maybe they kick them, maybe they do something. And the older child is now the victim. First of all, it's the younger child. Oh, poor me, I've got no one to play with. They then turn to persecute the older child, take their things. Older child then becomes the victim. Older child gets really annoyed about this, pushes the younger child. Maybe the younger child bangs a head or falls over. Younger child then screams and cries, "Mummy, he pushed me." Younger child then is victim. Mum comes along as rescuer, and we've all done this, and immediately scoops up the younger child who's making the most noise. The younger child's hurt. But actually, who is the victim in that situation? And this is perhaps why I get quite a lot of children in their sort of, older children who have had to take responsibility, and they're often the ones that are deemed responsible for their behavior, when in fact, actually, they're responding in persecutor, previously having been in victim. And that's what happens. Persecutor comes across as angry, loud, shouty, frustrated, pushing, shoving, shouting, and sort of almost like a bully. But actually, they've come from victim. This can also happen in situations where, say, the younger child is perhaps, or the child is in victim. I can't do something. I can't do this. I can't get on the school bus. I've had recently, I can't get on the school bus, or I can't do something. So mum scoops in, and it often is mum, because I think that's, isn't, maybe that's our natural tendency. Mum sort of scoops in, oh, it's okay, I'll take you to school. Then sometimes what'll happen is dad will then pop into persecutor. So he's saying something, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't take them to school. They should have got up earlier. They should have rushed around. They should have got themselves organized and got on the school bus. You shouldn't take them because it's not doing them any good. They need to learn. And then mum sort of feels, and child feels, oh, daddy's being sort of a bit mean and so on. But actually daddy's in a position there of not having his needs met, because he too loves the child. But he feels that the best thing is actually, I'm going to say tough love, but but the dad is saying, no, he needs to, or she needs to actually do this for herself or himself, because it will boost their self-esteem, which indeed it will. So what's happening in this situation is actually nobody's getting their needs met at all. Everybody's feeling a bit sort of fed up and hard done by, because even the rescuer, when the rescuer keeps rescuing, eventually when they don't feel that they're being appreciated, they'll move into victim. Oh, poor me. And then they move quite quickly into persecutor, getting really mad and just at the slightest thing. So you help, do all this stuff as a loving mum or dad, and then you feel like, well, nobody's really appreciating me. Nobody's really seeing all the things I've done. And then you're in victim, and then you get really annoyed because the kids come in, they just leave all their shoes all over the place, or they open a door and somebody's room's in a mess, and then they hit the roof and they get really mad and they shout and how can you do this, etc. They go into persecutor. But then they feel really bad that they've done that, because maybe the child says, oh, I'm really sorry, mummy, I'll do it now. And then think, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, poor me, I've blown my top again, and I shouldn't have done that. It's only because of this, or it's because of that. And they maybe blame work pressures, and so work pressures go into the persecutor role. And then we go into the rescue. Oh, there. Oh, I'm really sorry, I shouldn't have lost my temper. We're in rescuer again. So I'm hoping that what you can see is that there's movement around these, the triangle. So what do we do? What do we do to change this? Right. The victim needs the person, when you're in victim, when you're in that role, you need to have a can do it attitude. What can I do to step away? So you saw that triangle, you need to step away. One of the things you can do is to disassociate. You can just imagine hovering above it and looking down, who's doing what happened first, where's, who said what, who did what, etc., etc. So you can just look down, what are the triggers, what happened first, who did this, who was the rescuer, who was the persecutor, and see your role in it. Which were you? What got you started? How did that happen, that you were the rescuer or the persecutor or the victim? So sort of take the emotion out of it and look down on it, look at it as it is. Then think, okay, so how can I now step away? So if you were in victim, you need to think, okay, what do I need right now? How can I express this? What can I do? See yourself as a problem solver. Okay, so I'm not appreciated, or I feel like this. What can I do about this? There might be all sorts of things that you might like to do, just to take some time out, phone a friend, have a nice bubble bath, go for a run. You'll have your own go-to for sort of actually giving yourself what you need in that moment. So you need to turn to being sort of a creative problem solver. Think about, okay, what are my options here? What could I do? Also, I would say as a mum, we do, or a dad, I mean, it could be either, but, we do tend to do an awful lot for our children, mums and dads, certainly, I would say a lot more than, say, when I was a child, which was a very long time ago. And a lot, we do an awful lot. Look at the things that we do. Do we actually need to do all of those things for them? You know, Perhaps there are some things they can do for themselves. There's a lot more, if they were to think of themselves as having a can do it, even if as the rescue, instead of helping in fixing, you said, you can do this, you can do this, you've got this, you know, and encourage rather than fix, encourage, you're really good, just think of it, just take it slowly, read the question again, just sort of take a deep breath, have some water, you can do this. So the victim needs to think, or victim role needs to think, I can do this. How can I do it? What are my options? And the rescuer can say, what are the options here? What are your choices? Maybe you could start this homework first and come back to that homework. So the rescuer needs to be simply a coach, just being there to listen and to say, yes, I understand you feel you can't do it. What will help you to do it? What do you need in this moment to do it? And if they say something like, well, I need you to do it, well, but you can do this yourself. You can do this. You just encourage, you can do this yourself. And just think how great you'll feel when you have. In the book, there's lots of sort of things like what we call hypnotic embedded commands, which is a rather clever way, and I've certainly used it with mine when they were younger, and saying things like, I'm wondering how great you'll feel when you've done it. Now, the wondering is slightly hypnotic. How you feel is projecting ahead. When you've done it assumes they will do it. So not if you do it, but when. I'm wondering how you'll feel, how great you'll feel when you've done it. What would you like to eat when you've done it? What game are you going to play on your Xbox when you've done it? Rather than the if, which implies they may not be able to do it or they may not do it. So the rescuer needs to step back and simply coach, be there, use clean language, tell me about, what is there about, what do you need, etc. So how will you do it? Take sort of gentle steps. And the persecutor needs really to express their needs. So rather than saying sort of, you shouldn't do this, you should, is more the question, the sort of the gentle question, like, is there another option here? Rather than you taking them to school, we want him or her to, feel confident and to feel like they can do stuff. Is there another way we can do it rather than simply rescuing? So the persecutor role can also be one of sort of expressing, I love our child. I want them to have good self-esteem. I want them to, and I'm doing this out of love. I accept that, there may be other options. Can we just talk about this? And to be heard, because what can happen is persecutor can actually end up be a bit shouty and then nobody listens. And then they can go into victim as well, like nobody's listening to me, I only want this, that's all I wanted was to, etc. So we're coming up to the on to 10 o'clock, and I'm going off for my last cycle with my group for a little while, so I'm looking forward to that. It's a beautiful day, so I hope that all of you will have a lovely day, and enjoy the beautiful sunshine, and get outside perhaps if you can. Just a little reminder, this is my book. It comes out on Monday, and as I said, there's a chapter in there on the drama triangle, and I hope that I've given you a bit of insight. Obviously there's a lot more in the chapter, and if the drama triangle is something that you sort of feel that you and your family are struggling with a bit, then you're very welcome to give me a call, send me a message, or if there's anything that I've said that isn't completely clear, again, get in touch. I'm always here. I'm not scary, I'm very approachable. So just get in touch and I can help. And let's see what the day will bring. And tomorrow I'm going to be talking about, that's right, it's firework day tomorrow. So I'm going to be talking about fireworks and anger. And that's very much where we are when we're in persecutor. So everything links together. Okay, so Goodbye and have a lovely day.